Today we are doing France, and this series of 2 videos will have 3 objectives. First, the world conquest. Second, we will complete the entire French mission tree. As you know, it has been massively updated in 1.35 and it is glorious. 3. We will turn revolutionary because France is designed to go revolutionary, I feel, and we'll complete this revolutionary bit of the mission tree also. And of course, our main objective always is to relax and have some fun. The video you're watching now is part 1, covering the starting moves until 1600. If people like it enough to give it 500 likes, I will complete the world conquest and post part 2. Your like will make my day, and I will share the joy with my good friend Mila, who loves a good treat. Several people have asked me to post a French world conquest. As you know, I read and respond to all the comments, so there we go, the French world conquest. Just like our friends England up north, we begin in the middle of the 100 Years' War. I've decided to make my opening moves dependent on the initial RNG. If England peacefully surrenders Maine to me, I will go for my classic world conquest opening of Novosibirsk Byzantium. However, if England goes to war with me over Maine, I will then go for their throat and I will open with a big blue blob achievement. My name is Alex, and today we'll be playing a chill game, no stress. I want to show you a typical shape of a world conquest, and I also want to show that it doesn't have to be stressful. In preparation for the events related to the 100 Years' War, I'd love to put in place some strong alliances. Castile is happy to ally me off the bat. I did not restart this game for a better RNG, but in your game, Castile may be rival to you. In this case, choose Aragon for example. Aragon also joined my alliance. That's great, I love it. These days, France starts with 2 major disadvantages. First, we have this bunch of unruly appanages. They behave just like vassals, but they have plus 35 liberty desire. And to annex them, you have to have high crown land, and you've got to seize land at least once. Second, we have a pretty bad government. The so-called French feudalism, it fixes you to the kingdom rank, thus severely limiting your governing capacity. Your nobility loyalty will keep dropping after annexing each of your appanages, and it also has minus 50 absolutism. All in all, a horrible government. Of course, we will be switching out of it as soon as we can. We will become rich fast, but for now, our income is nothing to write home about. I have already taken the cheap loans from our bourgeoisie. I have also started building some new regiments, both infantry and cavalry. To have a better balance at the end of each month, I'm going to delete some forts, those which are not in the good defensive positions. Et voila, we have tripled our monthly income from 1 to 3 ducats. We got the surrender of Maine. England has decided not to go to war with us. So this means no Novosibirsk Byzantium, which is, to be fair, a more efficient strategy for a world conquest. The big blue blob is fun on its own, but as far as a world conquest goes, it's really not effective. What matters early on is the quality of your development, not the amount of provinces you have. And the big blue blob forces you to grab 100 provinces in cheap areas of Europe. What I'm doing now is step changing my relations with Provence. Our mission tree has 2 scenarios of dealing with Provence, and I've decided to go with the friendly one. I expect to have a lot of aggressive expansion in Europe very soon, and every little bit helps. Ahead of declaring my war against the Byzantines, I have improved relations with the Ottomans until they gave me their military access. Actually, after my Russian world conquest, where I had a similar opening, a few people complained that they couldn't get the military access. The approach to mitigate it is quite simple. First, don't set them as your rivals. Second, go ahead and declare the war even if you don't have the access. Very likely you will get the conditional access anyway. What I've just done now is I've declared Austria as my rival, and because they're also rival to the Ottomans, this improved my relations with the Ottomans. Thinking ahead, I'm carrying favors with Provence. I will then exchange these favors for trust, because I will need 90 trust with them. While engaging in all the diplomatic activity, I've prepared my troops to land in Byzantium. And let's go, the first war of this campaign. When fighting a nation with a sizable fleet, it's a good idea to hire an admiral. This may deter the enemy from attacking your fleet. As France, we have a massive army of course. While besieging Constantinople, we can also start occupying the rest of the country. This war is super easy to be fair, everything is occupied very fast. As France, we start with a set of excellent generals, who, uniquely, have high siege pips. However, during this war, the Ottomans attacked Byzantium also. Constantinople is out of my coring range, so I cannot annex it completely. Vassalizing it though brings me into a direct war with the Ottomans. That's one reason I have allied all those powerful countries early on. Byzantium is now my vassal, and I am defending them. As such, it's a so-called defensive war. Because of that, I can call in all of my allies. All I have to do now is hold my ground until my allies come. All of them have powerful navies, so that shouldn't be a problem. I've noticed that my best starting general, Jean Bureau, has died. He has 3 siege peeps, but that's not even the main problem. One of my great missions requires Jean Bureau to win 4 battles, which he didn't have the chance to do. He won only 2 battles before dying. So what do we do then? Well, let's simply hire another general and name him Jean Bureau. Now this man can win us a couple of battles, and we will get one of the most unique rewards in this game: 3 pieces of early artillery. The war has been going on for 3 years and my allies haven't arrived yet. That's a bit of a bummer. I'm going to try one trick, which, to be fair, I should have done from the very beginning. That is to give my allies sieging targets in the Ottoman territories. Let's see if this brings them over. For now, I'm moving the entire stack of my armies together around the Balkans, sniping out the smaller Ottoman stacks. After a few quick victories, we can complete this mission, giving us 3 artillery pieces. And yes, less than a year later, my allies are starting to pour in small numbers first. But from here on, the Ottomans are pretty much done for. 2.5 years later, we have occupied the entire Balkan side of the Ottoman Empire. All I want to do now is to make sure they don't get Constantinople and that their country is divided into 2. This blocks them from the major part of the mission tree, weakening them. And even though this peace deal uses only 58 war score, I am very happy with it. The provinces I had conquered earlier I can now give back to Byzantium. I had taken this lands directly because I didn't want to have Athens as yet another vassal for myself. And of course, we immediately attack Epirus for the Byzantine course and annex it, because why wouldn't we? All this time, we continue carrying favors with Provence and exchanging these favors for trust with them. We need 90 trust for our mission and we already have 80. Even though my wars in Balkans have used up so much manpower that I had to hire some mercenaries, I don't want to delay my inevitable war with England. So we set Alençon as our target, invite all of our allies to join, and we declare. I want my allies in Iberia to take out Portugal, so just like before, I set the Portuguese forts as their targets. Apparently, as we grew in power, our appanages have become incredibly loyal, so this mission became available even without me trying. Among other good things, I get an extra diplomatic relations slot. I really need it. For my first idea group, I've decided to go with aristocratic. I quite like it in the latest patches. It's a nice fusion of military and economic ideas. It also fits with the role-playing aspect of being France. Enough men have died, time to think about peace. From Portugal, I'm taking Ceuta for myself and I'm giving one of their provinces to Castile. I have 2 reasons for this. First, because Castile has a claim of Portugal's. The 2 countries are now much less likely to ally each other. And second, I will be trying my luck, forcing a personal union on Castile. So I don't mind giving them some land. As for England, I'm taking more or less a standard peace deal here. All of their provinces on the continent and a couple of provinces in Ireland. I can now tick off another mission, the Ducal Ring of Normandy. It simply gives me a bunch of claims. And it rebalances the land ownership among my estates. The newly conquered Duke of Alençon wants to become an appanage. I have so many vassals, I really don't need another one. So, no. And apparently, we have just ended the 100 Years' War. This event gives us back the stability we've just lost. For now, I cannot decide what I want to do with the Papal States. My mission tree accounts for 2 different scenarios, friendship or hatred. I'm thinking that being France, I will be choosing militant options for most of the time. But because I want to remain Catholic, maybe for now I will be friends with them. I do want to become the papal controller as soon as possible though, so I'm investing all my papal influence into this. I'm back to politics for now, and I'm improving relations with my appanages and vassals to start annexing them. While doing that, I'm thinking to have a couple of quick and easy wars here in Ireland. I got a subjugation CB on one of them from my estate missions. This is excellent. This country can become my vassal up here, to whom I can feed the rest of Ireland. This Milanese succession is pretty much a scripted event, and it's almost guaranteed to happen if you're France. It has something to do with the Milanese government, I cannot remember exactly, but we now can force a personal union on them over the next 25 years. Events like this, along with the massive mission tree, is what makes France such an easy country for a world conquest. In this particular game, Burgundy had rivaled me from the very beginning, and I've just surpassed them apparently, so they stopped considering me their rival. If I can, I would love to go for the Burgundian inheritance. Let's see if it happens. I see this video as a guide of sorts for the world conquest, so I will not save scum for the Burgundian inheritance. Finally, we have done all the positive things with Provence, and now we can tick off this mission. We get the House of Valois event, which makes Provence our junior partner in a personal union, and their old partner, Lorraine, also becomes ours. In the earlier versions of the dispatch, you could apparently inherit Provence with a click of a button. As far as I understand, that's no longer possible. So the strategy of feeding Provence a whole lot of provinces to later get them for free no longer works. Because I used the subjugation casus belli, I have to make my enemy a vassal before signing the peace deal. I'm really tanking my diplomatic mana right now. But now I can use their claims to declare my next war. Ha, England wants me to support the House of Lancaster. I have to say no, chaos there is what I want. Although it's perfectly possible to achieve a world conquest without PUing anyone, for this playthrough I've decided to try for a few personal unions. One of my targets is Castile, who I hope will become Spain. My plan here is very simple and straightforward. Keep their alliance and the royal marriage, and keep carrying favors until I have 90. And if I catch them without an heir, I will request to place my own dynasty on their throne. Overall, for the next 50 years or so, I will keep sniping royal marriages around Europe. We will see what comes out of it. But personal unions is one of the stress-free ways to conquer a lot of land. No one seems to care about my conquests here in Ireland, not even England. I have 8 vassals of different types right now. I think it's time to start annexing some. Orléans is my biggest appanage, so I decided to start from them. Okay, the Iberian wedding has fired. Great news, because Aragon used to be my ally. They used to occupy a diplomatic relations slot, which will now become free. It's excellent. If I manage to PU Castile or Spain, this will now bring me a lot of rich territories in Europe. If I don't manage to do it, and if I have to fight Spain, then I will be able to release Aragon from one of the provinces and get a lot of land for very little aggressive expansion. Okay, let's continue our conquest in Ireland, so later we can attack into Scotland and what remains of England. And I almost forgot I had the casus belli on Milan to make them my junior partner, so we go. They have a relatively strong alliance network, having Bohemia and Naples. Still, my alliance bloc has more than twice the amount of troops. As a side note, I'm getting a lot of noble rebels in this campaign. It must be the French government thing. It took me 2 years, but after getting Milan's allies out of this war, I can enforce my personal union on them. I've just gained some rich lands in northern Italy, and I'm starting to think that for Italy I will choose the path of direct conquest. I just need to keep the positive relations with the Pope long enough for them to give the province of Avignon to my vassal Provence. There is a mission for that in the Provençal mission tree which hasn't fired yet. Oh, for goodness sake, another noble revolt. 50,000 rebels this time. Just as I was recovering my manpower, I have literally just disbanded my mercenaries and I have only 17,000 men in my standing army. I don't know, maybe you think it's lame, but I accepted the rebel demands. This has given me a lot of autonomy, which I cannot actually lower because I recently did it. But I don't care, I'm not losing money right now. And because I accepted those demands, I now have minus 85 revolt risk in most of my provinces. So now I can stop maintaining my forts, reducing my spendings even more. That counts for something, doesn't it? I have been at war non-stop for a few decades. My war exhaustion is ridiculous. Let's lower it. As we recover from the series of war, we continue annexing our appanages. We just need to seize land after every annexation. I've declared this war on Granada because I want to get the Alhambra monument for myself. This war is a little risky for me because it can enrage Castile against me, but I've decided to take this risk. In the worst case, I will simply fight Castile. Alhambra gives 5% administrative efficiency, which is critical for the world conquest. As a side note, surprisingly, in this campaign, I have been struggling for money, but not for the monarch points. Instead of taking more loans to embrace Renaissance, I've decided to develop more provinces for it. In the end of the day, developing provinces also makes me stronger. Embracing Renaissance gives us this mission with a very cheap advisor and a fast innovativeness gain for 20 years. Granada is allied to Morocco, so I've invited Castile to fight on my side. Unfortunately, they immediately occupied one of the Granadan provinces that I missed. That's okay, I only wanted Alhambra anyway. From Morocco, I want to take a couple of annoying forts. As I select these provinces, I'm being very cautious not to give Castile any land by mistake. And then the two of us fully annex Granada. I've taken this entire area for myself because it's critical for access into Northern Africa. I don't want to get stuck here in case Castile becomes my enemy in the future. We get this decision to hold the retrial of Jeanne d'Arc, although in the game terms it doesn't do much. And when the Burgundian inheritance finally fires off, what does it do? It goes to Austria, my rival. This in turn creates an incident in the Holy Roman Empire. As you can see, the majority of princes are voting for Austria to keep their union with Burgundy, which can lead to war with me, France. This suits me just fine. Burgundy is very weak unfortunately by now. It has lost most of its subjects in the Low Countries, which is a bummer. Very soon we get this Austria-defiant event and we go to war with Austria. Luckily I can call in my ally Castile with their massive army. We actually started the war with less troops than the enemy alliance. This is not going to be easy, and of course I'm going to hire some mercenaries. Free company should be okay for now. 3 years and many battles later, the tables are starting to turn. We now have slightly more troops, and the enemies are becoming wary of the war. Soon enough, the enemy capital falls. We now pretty much dominate the battlefield. The war is done. For the peace deal, I have enough war score to demand that Burgundy becomes my personal union partner and take quite a bit of money. And that's when the French mission tree shows its awesomeness. I can integrate the entire Burgundy with a single click of a button. This mission here triggers the famous Kiss the Horse event, and now what used to be Burgundy is simply part of my land. This has pushed me over my governing capacity, of course, but it is worth it. Of course, immediately the coalition started to form against me. That's just a fact of life. Here is the mission which used to unearth Provence in one go. However, these days it only gives an extra diplomat and some diplomatic reputation, which I guess is fine. We've now also completed the Loire Valley Chateau mission by owning all the needed provinces and developing them at least 3 times. It gives us this event, where I'm going to choose some money and admin power. Almost immediately we get our next mission, because we have hired quite a bit of cavalry. It gives us access to the gendarme government reform, which is excellent, and some army professionalism. Here is the reform I was talking about. As you can see, it synergizes very well with the aristocratic idea group I've taken, although to be fair, as soon as I can, I will replace it with the musketeer reform. My next war is against Brittany. I have also co-belligerated England and Portugal because I want to grab some land from them. Because Scotland is my ally, I was able to position my troops right on the border with the English territory. I may have made a mistake bringing Scotland in. I don't really need the army to win the war, but they may get in my way. Let's see. One very common activity when fighting England is chasing their troops all over their island. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. One of my armies is sieging London and the other one is running around chasing the enemy. And yes, I did make a mistake inviting Scotland in. My mission tree requires me to have the entire state of London in my possession. Then I will get claims on the rest of the British Isles. However, the Scots have occupied one of the provinces I need. Oh well, I'm not going to replay this war. The mission we have just completed has nothing to do with our British conquests. We have simply met the requirements to develop a bunch of provinces in France and have low autonomy. Now, our most developed provinces we get a bunch of nice modifiers to keep developing. These will last only 15 years though. I have decided not to take this mission for now. I forgot to record it, sorry, but from Portugal I took a few islands here and there to make the future wars with them a bit easier. I also took a couple of provinces in Africa from them. As for Brittany itself, I've demanded its full annexation. At this stage, I'm beyond caring about the coalition forming against me. This coalition is quite big to be fair, and it includes most, if not all, the Holy Roman Empire, which makes me think that I should disband this abomination. I've been improving relations non-stop with several strategic countries. Bohemia, Poland, Lithuania, the 2 of them didn't form a union, also Castile and Denmark. I'm hoping to PU at least some of these countries. Brandenburg and Hungary would also be nice to PU as well, but that's probably a bit too ambitious. Anyway, let's tick off a couple of missions. This one I had mentioned earlier, about the province development. And now we get this mission related to Avignon. I didn't notice when, but my vassal Provence got this province from the Papal States, which is exactly what I wanted and why I have been keeping good relations with the Papal States. This is a reasonably useful monument for us. It gives yearly papal influence, clergy loyalty and some power projection. But honestly, I clicked out and forgot about this mission for a while. Meanwhile, my royal marriage policies are starting to pay out. Lithuania now has my dynasty. Building our navy up to 80% of its force limit gives us another mission, Port of Calais. We also needed a lot of heavy ships, of course. This decision gives us claims on the London area, which is a little bit too late for us. France has so many missions, I feel like clicking one of them every 10 minutes. This one, for example, gives us the Catholicon event, a cheap advisor and some institution spread bonus for a while. Now that we have United France, this mission gives us some permanent power projection and a little bit of prestige. And now it's time to face the Holy Roman Empire. In your game, you may want to choose to go for the Holy Roman Emperorship. After all, it will give you most of Europe for free. But today I've decided to be a militant France, so I'm going for the confrontational approach. The rest of this mission branch will depend on the decision you choose right now. In my case, the newly revealed missions will be related to conquest. In preparation for my future wars outside of Europe, after the aristocratic and exploration ideas, I took religious. I absolutely plan to Deus Vult my way around the world. In preparation for my war against Austria to dismantle the Holy Roman Empire, I'm working to ally literally every elector. It's taken me some time because I have accumulated so much aggressive expansion, but I believe it's possible. As I ally more and more countries in Europe, two things are happening. First, I'm going to the negative on my diplomatic points, and second, the coalition is starting to dissolve. And after Austria left the coalition, I was ready to declare this war. My alliance has just over 2 times more troops than they do. So this war isn't going to be easy by any means. The funny thing is, have I chosen the diplomatic way to do these missions, I probably would have been elected the Holy Roman Emperor, seeing that the electors are starting to support me. But I simply don't want to think about the diplomatic cost of this way of going about it. Okay, I've just verified every single elector is allied to me. All I need to do to dismantle the HRE is occupy Vienna. And done, Vienna is occupied, and now we can dismantle this monstrosity. We put the Holy Roman Empire to rest, get a lot of splendor, prestige and power projection. Two things will now be different. First, we will not have so much aggressive expansion when taking the Germanic countries. And second, all the former HRE states will now start attacking each other without the Emperor protection. Both of these things mean less coalitions. But I'm not going to go wild in Europe just yet. The previous coalition has literally just dissolved, and I'm still limited by my governing capacity. So in this war, I'm only taking 4 provinces for myself. While doing so, I've decided to get some provinces in the Balkans and deny Austria any sea access. Now we obviously dissolve some of the unnecessary alliances with the small countries. I do need to recover my Diplo points. I believe the period of love and understanding between us and the Papal States has come to an end. I will expand into Italy militarily. Alright, after cancelling several alliances, we're starting to generate at least 2 diplomatic points a month. I took 2 or 3 years to stabilize my country, repay some loans, build some buildings, and I'm ready for my next war with England. This time I did not call Scotland in. I've kept this mission De Architectura open for now, because I hoped to accumulate some money to upgrade the palace by at least 1 level. Instead, I've been strained for money up until now, so I decided to tick it off. It gives splendor, prestige, and upgrades the palace of the popes by 1. As always with these missions, the game converts all the extra prestige into monarch points. Now that the HR is gone, I am happy to start taking more provinces in Europe. My new missions require me to conquer a lot around Switzerland as well as in southern and northern Germany. I have to say, some of the missions I really dislike because they require me to culture convert German provinces. I know I have completed the one culture world conquest just to complete a challenge, but it goes against my principles. From Portugal, once again, I want to take the remote islands and one of the colonial nations in the Caribbean. That will be fantastic to increase my trade value. From England, I'm taking a single province to complete the London area conquest and whatever they have left in Ireland for beautiful borders, as well as their money. This will make my next mission available to me, which will give me claims on the rest of Britain. This one. I keep feeling the French mission tree is so powerful, it's almost unfair. I'm over 200 points above my governing capacity limit. Being locked to the kingdom rank is really becoming a limiting factor for me. My expansion so far has been going quite well. I've united the area of France, annexed most of my initial subjects as well as Provence, conquered Ireland, and got some footholds in Africa and in the Caribbean. Of course, most of the work is still ahead of us. In a typical world conquest, you acquire over 90% of land after 1600. I'm having to halt my expansion frequently to build some courthouses and catch up with my governing capacity for now. One natural option here is to start expanding via vassals and personal union subjects, which is exactly what I'm going to do. After our colonial nation forms in the Caribbean, we get this mission, Found the French Antilles. It basically enables our subject to colonize faster. And finally, after almost 100 years of investing almost all of our papal influence into becoming the papal controller, we became one. This will help a lot managing our aggressive expansion and annexations. It's a bit confusing because we already got the Trial of Jeanne d'Arc decision, but now that we have the papal controller, we get this mission, the Trial of Jeanne d'Arc. It gives us even more papal influence, which is always welcome, and some true faith tolerance. I would love to remain the papal controller until the end of the game. I do know some tricks and shenanigans, which I'm happy to demonstrate in one of the later videos. Because this video is a mainstream guide, I'm going to be very simple about it. Invest most of my papal points into this, and when I start converting provinces I will have a lot of them, and honestly eliminate all or at least most of the other Catholic nations. For 3 years I've declared no wars, instead I've engaged into politics. I also reduced the liberty desire of my subjects, and now I can fulfill this mission, Crown Seat of Paris, which gives me 15% annexation discount for the next 20 years. I'm taking it now because I've been annexing my subjects non-stop. This mission boosted my government reform progress also, and now I can take the gendarme government reform. It will make my cavalry even stronger. I am now very close to getting rid of the French feudalism government reform that I hate so much. This next mission will make it possible. For that I need to annex all the subjects in the French area. I have only Lorraine remaining right now. This will cancel the French strong Duchess privilege. I also need to get above 50% of crown land ownership. All very achievable. I got this event now, the Anjou claims to the Kingdom of Naples. As much as I want to remain a friend of Spain's, I am going to take these claims. Spain had already enforced their personal union on Naples, which is why I'm getting claims on both Spain and Naples. As I had mentioned before, I had been carrying favors with my PU targets. For example, Poland. I have a royal marriage with them and they have no heir, and I have enough favors with them, above 90, to request them to put my dynasty onto their throne. Sometime over the last few decades, Poland stopped being an elective monarchy, so this is now possible to do. I now have my dynasty on the Polish and Lithuanian thrones. I'll now be looking out for the right conditions to enforce my PU on them. I'm also carrying favors with other big nations: Brandenburg, Hungary, Bohemia, Spain and Denmark. I'm now powerful enough to start vassalizing smaller nations. I've just diplomatically vassalized Palatinate and working to do the same with Savoy. After I annexed Lorraine, I lost the French strong Duchess privilege. Unlike the normal strong Duchess, it gives +3 diplomatic relationships. But you have to maintain a vassal in the French area. That basically nullifies the advantage. Now I can select the normal strong Duchess. I am well on my way to becoming an empire. All I need to do now is get 10 more crown land to go above 50. As much as I enjoy this diplomatic game, it pains me to stop my conquests for such a long time. For my missions I need to conquer Switzerland, so let's go for it. What I absolutely did not expect is this amount of aggressive expansion for taking out Switzerland. I prefer to complete my world conquests without having to fight coalitions. I tried a few configurations of this peace deal, but aggressive expansion was always high. Let's go for it and see what happens. During this war, I managed to use 90 favors to place my dynasty on the Brandenburg throne. My other ally, Scotland, doesn't have an heir either, but I don't have enough favors with them and their ruler is only 15 years old. That may not work, but I managed to deeply vassalize Savoy. Here is an example of a perfect PU opportunity. Lithuania has my dynasty on its throne, de Valois, and the heir has a weak claim. What do we do in this situation? The only logical thing, claim their throne. Two things will now happen. First, we have just received the casus belli to enforce our personal union on them. And second, in the very unlikely event of their ruler and heir dying, they will be more likely to become our personal union partner peacefully. I've just broken my alliance with them so that I can declare my war on them 5 years later, when the truce expires. Even in this very RNG-based game, the chance that their newborn heir with a weak claim survives for 5 years is pretty high, guaranteeing that I don't lose my claim. Bohemia looks like a great candidate for my next alliance, and as the next target for my royal marriage game. Scotland is still heirless, but with all respect to the Scots, they are too small to be worthy of a personal union. Plus, they suddenly broke off their alliance with me. I guess I'll simply conquer them straight up. I need Brandenburg's sympathies, so I will accept this call for war. I am not clicking off my desire to join the offensive wars, because that would make my favor generation with them much slower, and I value my favor generation with them, so I can keep putting my dynasty on their throne in case it's needed. Like in this situation, the heir I placed on the Polish throne has died, and the original dynasty has returned, and now I need to repeat this process all over again. This diplomatic Game of Thrones requires a lot of patience. Sometimes I just prefer straightforward conquest, like I did when conquering the world with pirates and Teutons. Now, this is a big deal. After we seize our crown land for another time, we reach 49%. All we need to do now to reach 50 is develop our provinces a few times. And there we go. Upon reaching 50% of crown land, we have completed all the criteria for this mission, which is going to give us our French absolutist monarchy. At long last, we can forget about the French feudalism. By itself, the French absolutist monarchy is nothing special really. It simply gives you plus 10 absolutism and minus 10% influence to all your estates, which is not bad. Centralizing a state adds some random development into that area, which in my mind defeats the purpose of decentralization. But most importantly, of course, we're no longer fixed to the kingdom rank and we can become an empire. Okay, 5 years has passed, my truce with Lithuania has expired. I have enough favors with Poland to break their alliance with Lithuania. I obviously waited until the last moment to do it so they don't rely each other again. And we ride to war. You may have noticed that Spain is no longer my ally, which is really unfortunate. Our strategic interests have apparently clashed and they dropped this alliance. Okay, well, my own heir died when my rule is 50. This isn't good. Ooh, and Brandenburg lost my dynasty. Bad news don't come alone. I don't have enough favors with them to put my dynasty back. The Council of Trent. Because I'm the papal controller, I can choose the Catholic stance towards the heretics. I decided to choose a reasonably balanced approach, but mostly harsh. I have to say, I am sincerely surprised Novgorod has survived so far into the game. That's because they have allied themselves to both Poland and Lithuania. Now that I'm taking Lithuania out of the picture, Muscovy will most likely attack them. For my conquest efficiency's sake, I would rather prefer Russia not to form. This is why I took the province of Novgorod in this peace deal. Luckily for me, Brandenburg remained hairless until I closed the gap in favors to put my dynasty back in their succession line. I don't want to let them go so easily. This was a very easy war given the strength of my alliance. I set on the full occupation of Lithuania simply because I wanted the previous aggressive expansion to wear out. Of course, after making such a large country my PU, I will be facing another coalition. They now hate me to the tune of minus 200 relationships. I recently got a new heir, but my ruler is very old. My priority now is to bring my relationships with Lithuania into positive before my ruler dies. The good news is relationships with your personal unions usually improve around 20 or 30 points each year. Brandenburg broke the alliance with me. I don't think I'm getting them as my next PU subject. Strangely enough, they agreed to re-ally me and re-marry me very soon after this dramatic show of anger, so maybe not all is lost with them yet. Goodness, don't scare me like this game. I thought my ruler died. But this is just a routine scandal in the family. To take a break from all this dynastic and political drama, I decided to expand into Africa. I have fabricated some claims here in the West Africa. I've been waiting on Jolov to make peace with their neighbors, but they just wouldn't do it. So let's declare and see what happens. And yep, they signed that peace, and they're now my neighbors. I made the mistake of not stealing or buying the maps of this area, so it took me a while to siege all the provinces in the terra incognita. But it's now done, and a small piece of West Africa is ours. Back in Europe, the Polish king lost his successor again. So back to our dynasty we go. This time my heir is at least younger than the serving king. My next war is against Congo. I've colonized the province on their border and fabricated some claims. I'm going into Africa now because I want to start building my trade routes. I intend to dominate West and then East Africa, conquer around the Mediterranean and get into India. Easy war, gaining us a lot of land. The nation of Fulo spawned here in the uncolonized land in the Western Africa. I immediately fabricated claims on them, and for whatever reasons they remain alliance free, so easy pickings. Meanwhile, my obsessive Game of Thrones continues in Europe. I can now request my dynasty on the Bohemian throne. After a lot of back and forth, I have actually done quite well for myself. I now also have my dynasty in the succession line for the thrones of Spain, Brandenburg and Poland. Obviously I want more. Savoy and Milan are already my subjects, and I have just diplomatically annexed the Palatinate. And I'm now making advances towards Finland and Denmark. My country is heirless again. I keep disinheriting horrible heirs. I really haven't been lucky in this run. Like this event offers me a 4-3-0 heir. Come on. So my old king dies heirless, and look at that. 6, 3, 5, my best ruler so far. I guess the stubborn disinheriting pays off eventually. And the game is back to its horrible succession planning. 1, 5, 1. No thank you. Full annexation of Fulu, of course. My relative has finally made it into the rulership position of Brandenburg. This has taken me a lot of work. Back in Africa, I continue to conquer the coastline. I've made Zazao my vassal in this war, so I can use their claims to immediately fight farther inland. These all are cheap war score provinces, and I'm not really worried about the aggressive expansion here. I am annexing even the countries which I didn't co-belligerate. For those provinces which are too far for me to core, I am setting the occupation by Zazao. I believe my poor vassal will be quite overextended after all the peace deals are signed. Yeah, they also don't really like me. And so that no one down here as much as thinks about joining a coalition against me, I declare my next war immediately. I did not co-belligerate Morocco, and I prefer to attack them directly a little bit later. For now, I just want to break their alliances and get their money. Great news, because I've spent so much time fighting in Africa, the European coalition has dissolved. I have noticed that Hungary is without an heir, so immediate royal marriage. Once again, I'm going well above my diplomatic relationships limit, which is fine. The individual royal marriages are opportunistic, of course, but my overall strategy here is to place my dynasty on as many European thrones as I can. As soon as the previous batch of course is complete, we continue our hostile takeovers. Nice, we're starting to dominate the Western Africa. Spain is back in the dynasty game for me. Whatever grievances they had blew over, and they have allied me again. The heir I had given them has reached the leadership position of the country. If I get Spain as my personal union partner, this game will be a breeze. I have noticed that Scotland has invaded England. That's a nice opportunity for me to declare my own English war. I have completed my religious ideas, and I can Deus Vult them. If I declare for my claims, I will suffer 100% aggressive expansion for each province. With Deus Vult, however, it's only 75%. England's economy is so weak that they have only one level 1 fort and a small army. When you defeat their army, it routinely hides away in Cornwall. As long as you can intercept them there, they're done. My alliance has 7 times more troops than they do. Of course, most of these armies are in the New World, being Spain. But England and their continental allies stand no chance. They sneaked onto my capital Paris and besieged it when I was not looking. I am impressed, I have to give them that. Now that we have secured the Alpine Pass, the Italian part of the mission tree opens up. As I understand, had we become friends of the Papal States, they would have become our March or something like that. In my case, I chose war, so the reward this mission will give me is minus 10% aggressive expansion, which is not too bad, but honestly not that impressive. Because this is a temporary buff, I've decided to leave it for later, not now. As I had mentioned before, some of my missions require culture conversion, in this case in Germany. So whenever I have free diplo power, I'm starting to convert the Germanic provinces to Francian. I have waited forever for England and Scotland to peace out. They never did. It looks like when the two AIs are stuck in a war, they would always wait for the player to peace out first. Or at least they would do it most of the time. As always with the colonizers from England, I'm taking their remote provinces first and some provinces in their mainland. In this war, most of England's remote lands were occupied by Spain, so I left them be. After this war, we own 30 provinces in the British Isles altogether. This fulfills another mission, which is a little prematurely called the French Isles. This mission triggers the French Isles event that offers 2 options. Option 1 gives us the British naval expertise that makes our fleet much stronger until the end of the game. And Option 2 makes integrating the Isles easier into our country in terms of culture and development. Seeing how the French mission tree has been developing so far, I suspect later missions will have something to do with converting British culture to French, so I decided to go with the second option. I think this is the first time in this campaign when we became overextended above 100%. From now on this will be much more common. You may remember that in my previous war I had cancelled all of Morocco's alliances. I am very surprised to see they are still without allies. I mean, who wouldn't attack them now? I would. As you know by now, I try to fight easy wars early on. This one is no exception. Easy war again. I decided to help myself even more with this mission, lowering my aggressive expansion, and why not take this next mission too? It upgrades the monument in Milan by 1 level. And now I can take what I want from Morocco. Scotland has done quite well for itself in this game. Unfortunately for them, they are on my target list, because I need to conquer the British Isles. So that's my next war. I bet you have guessed it, this is another easy war. I pieced out Scotland's allies just for money and trade, and from them I'm taking as many provinces as would fit into my war score. I'd say this is it for part 1. We are now in July 1600. We have completed our opening moves for this world conquest. Let's quickly recap where we are and our next steps. We've united our French homeland and invaded England, neutralized the Ottoman Empire and Morocco, who usually grow quite big, imposed our personal union on Lithuania in a successful war, and colonized a little bit around the world all the way to the Spice Islands and Caribbean. We've exceeded our development target and reached 2.8 thousand development, not as much as in our Korean game with a staggering 4,000 development in 1600, but exceeding all our other recorded games on this channel. I've enjoyed this game a great deal, and I'm really looking forward to completing this world conquest. As I had mentioned before, if you are interested in part 2 of this guide, please give this video a like. Let's target 500 likes over the next few days, just to make sure I'm producing content which is interesting to you, and then I will post the rest of this guide. Massive thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.